Hmm. Interesting times. so, so the Democrats, as I refer to them, the Democrats, they all know that something was wrong with Joe. They all act like Joe was sharp as ever can be. They act like Joe Biden, his stamina, he was great guy. He might have been a great guy to a lot of the Democrats. Okay, that's fine. But they all kept coming out and said that there was nothing wrong with him. Remember the whole statement, and many people said it before. Don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe your lying eyes. We could see that something was truly wrong with Joe Biden. Now, let me put this out there. I have to put this disclaimer out there. I have to put this out there. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physician. Never claimed to be. Really don't want to be one. Okay? I'm not a doctor. Not a doctor. I hope the caption is getting that correctly. Not a doctor. Will Johnson is not claiming to be a doctor. Got to put that out there. I'm not diagnosing Joe Biden. I don't know what's wrong with Joe. But looking at Joe from a distance, something is off. Something is not right. We've seen this for many years with Joe Biden. I talked about it in 2018. Something was wrong with Joe. 2019, something was wrong with Joe. We saw something was wrong with Joe the entire time. And all of those on the left, because of their hatred for another man by the name of Donald J. Trump, they were willing to overlook the fact that something was wrong with Joe Biden because of their hatred for Trump. They were completely fine with it. They had no issues with it. You can't tell me that these people that claim to be so highly intelligent, so smart, on top of their A game, they know what's best for all of us, that they did not notice that something was wrong with Joe Biden. And again, y'all seen the videos, Joe Biden falling up the steps. Then they had to bring out the short steps because they got tired of him falling up the steps and people questioning it. But so they would never address it. They just changed the steps out to Air Force One. And they had him going up in the back because that's where the steps were shorter. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, Joe Biden's on stage and he's shaking invisible hands. He's reaching out to shake someone's hand that's not even there. They didn't want to question that either. Joe Biden couldn't complete a sentence. But anyway, remember that? Joe Biden was talking to dead people, apparently, because he said he just had a conversation with one lady and they said, yeah, sir, yeah, she's not with us any longer. And then they didn't even bring that up, saying, what is going on? How was this not a national security threat? How was it not a national security threat? And of course, they all look the other way. They all act like it wasn't a big deal. They all act like, well, we hate Trump more. Their hatred for Trump was bigger than the national security threat that Joe Biden presented in this country. So they were fine with it. They let it go. I remember I did this video and it was just a meme, basically. It was just a meme. And they had this video where Joe Biden went on with the Witches of the View. And someone just edited. It wasn't even the actual the video with him on there, but Joe Biden would say something, and then they just had the way the way the video was edited. They just had the women on the View, their facial expressions like what is he saying? What's going on? What's wrong with him? And it was funny as all get out. This was like in 2019, and I remember I put that video, and it was with my buddy Jay McKinney. I put that video on Facebook and it hit like 2.5 million views because it was just funny. Because we saw something was wrong with Joe. Again, don't know what's wrong with him, never diagnosed him, but something was wrong and we knew something was wrong with him. And with that said, the Democrats completely ignored it. Or they didn't ignore it, they just didn't want to acknowledge it. Kind of like what's happening in South Africa. I talked about it yesterday. all the stuff that's happened in South Africa. They just ignored it. So then they can turn around and say it's not true. It's not even happening. Because you remember the entire time with Joe Biden, they said he's sharp. There's no issues with his cognitive abilities. There's nothing wrong with Joe. They kept saying it. He's sharp. Karine Jean-Pierre, one of the biggest ones, she sat down. She was the press secretary. She was sitting down with Duke. And she would constantly say that he's sharp. I'm sitting in the room with him. I'm in the back. No one sees how sharp he is. No one sees how sharp he is. No one does. But she's saying that he was sharp when they were in these private meetings in the back, in the back rooms, what have you. Something was wrong with Joe. Something's still wrong with Joe. Let me share this with you. They're talking about this on Outnumbered, where Joe Biden, and where they say that they were lying to everybody. Yeah, they were lying, but my question is who actually believed the lies?
That is not a question that we should be.
This is a bombshell. It's a new book that is revealing how the Biden administration lied to the American people. That's the only way you can characterize it. They lied to us for years about his condition. And just how big of a role did the legacy media and the people in his circle play in covering it up? A pretty big one. In Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnas' book, Fight, we learned that Biden's aides needed to guide his every move. You all remember the Easter Bunny guiding him. That was a staffer dressed up as a bunny. And they went as far as to put fluorescent tape on the stage floor so he knew exactly where to walk. Well, now there's another book, and it claims that staffers even considered getting him a wheelchair. Part of the book says, quote, Biden's physical deterioration had become so severe that there were internal discussions about putting the president in a wheelchair, but they couldn't do so until after the election. So politics over the health of the president. Wow. And according to the book, Biden's own doctor, Kevin O'Connor, was worried about him dying. Quote, long privately expressed concerns, Mr. O'Connor did, about the toll that the presidency was taking on Biden's health. O'Connor sometimes quipped that Biden's staff members were trying to kill him while he was trying to keep him alive. Maybe a little lighthearted, maybe not, but concerning nonetheless. One former Biden aide recounted just how deep the cover-up went, saying, quote, we attempted to shield him from his own staff, so many people didn't realize the extent of the decline beginning in 2023. It was a disservice to the country and to the party for his family and advisors to allow him to run again. And former Harris campaign advisor David Plouffe with some colorful words. He said this, that Biden's exit was a bleeping nightmare. I'll leave that to your imagination. Going on the record to say Biden, quote, totally bleeped us. Well, I find that interesting, Molly, because I want to remind everyone what we were told from the White House podium. Roll it.
Oh my gosh, he's the president of the United States. I can't even keep up with it. We just got back from New Mexico. We just got back from California. That is not a question that we should be even asking. Just look at the work that he does. Look how he's delivering for the American public.
They were considering a wheelchair.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that? Yeah, and they were actually considering a wheelchair. Now that I didn't know they were going to do that. I didn't realize that they were considering a wheelchair for Joe Biden. Come to find out, they said that he had spinal issues. First time I heard that first time yesterday, and they didn't want that information coming out. And remember when Joe Biden was in office, that they did not want you to talk to his physician. They didn't want the doctor to come out to make any statements. And I guess because they didn't want the doctor to go out there and tell the truth, because if the doctor went out and did all these statements about this, he would have had to have lied about it. It would have been a total lie. And I guess he didn't want to lie. And so they prevented him from going out there. Now, here's another one. You remember they constantly talked about the cheap fakes or the deep fakes? How did they say it? Did they say both of them cheap fake, deep fakes?
Jean-Pierre said cheap fakes. That was she started
cheap fakes, right? Yeah, yep. She said was saying cheap fakes.
Yeah,
but I think sometimes she even said deep fakes.
True, you're right.
I think she said both of them.
Yeah, like deep
it's like
state
supposed
fakes.
To be the same thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they were also with the video that you see here, they were saying that Joe Biden came out on stage and he was out there with Barack Hussein Obama. And after he got done with the whole, this was like a campaign thing that they were doing. Was this the one with George Clooney too?
Yeah, this was
the one with George Clooney where Joe Biden did not recognize George Clooney.
Yep, I believe so.
And I think George Clooney took it personal. And that's why he came out with the little op-ed about Joe Biden.
I don't know. I think he was just really concerned that Joe Biden couldn't do the job.
Yeah, I mean, we already knew he couldn't do the job. Was he even doing the job, period? The 4 years that he was there? I mean, we question who controlled the auto pen. But nonetheless, the cheap fake. They were trying to say that Joe Biden walking to the edge of the stage, just gazing off into the crowd like, where am I? What's going on? And Barack Hussein Obama went and grabbed Joe Biden's hand. And according to the radical left, they were saying, well, Barack Hussein Obama, he got fatigued and he was irritated and he was ready to go. And he wasn't going to leave the stage without Joe. I mean, he's a grown man. Joe Biden's a grown man. Go off the stage. You don't have to hold Joe Biden's hand to go off the stage. And Karine Jean-Pierre said this was a deep fake or a cheap fake. It wasn't a cheap fake. We all saw it happen. Well, listen to Brian Steller.
The White House press secretary used the phrase cheap fakes, the idea of cheap fakes. Let me explain what that is to people. We've been worried for years about AI deep fakes, that computer generated images are going to trick people into believing something that's totally false. Cheap fakes are a little bit simpler. They're cheap. They're just distorted, out of context videos, chopped up in certain ways, constructed in certain ways. That's what we're seeing. That's what the Biden administration, the Biden campaign is so worried about right now. But make no mistake, they are worried about this. This is a real problem. This is not some made up fiction. The videos are oftentimes made up, but the problem is real.
See, now he's actually saying that the problem is real of the cheap fake videos that are being put out. And he was trying not to say that the problem was real with Joe Biden, but the problem with Joe Biden is real. It was real and it still is real. They were all trying to ignore it. They were trying to act like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not really actually happening. Don't pay attention to it. And now it's coming back to bite them. Now it's coming back to bite them in the backside. And now they're trying to figure out how. Well, I think the reason why the Democrats are saying that something was wrong with Joe Biden now after the fact, because they lost. They lost big time. And instead of them taking responsibility for their participation in their own loss, they're pointing fingers. They're pointing fingers at Joe. They're pointing fingers at his staff. They're not pointing fingers at themselves, but they are the reason why they lost. Every last one of these commentators, these talk host shows on the radical leftist media outlets, every last one of them, they were all saying that Joe Biden is sharp. There's a video with Joe Scarborough, and I meant to get it. There's a video with Joe Scarborough on the MSDNC saying that this is the best Joe ever. Have y'all seen that? This is the best Joe ever.
I remember that.
Yeah, he was straight up saying it. And I'm like, this dude, you know what? He's lying. And again, he's trying to convince the people that watch them to believe it. I don't understand why, I know what it is. They think that you are like children, that we can just tell you whatever and you'll believe it. And that's what they've done. And it came back and bit them in the backside, because people are like, dude, you're telling me that Joe is sharp and he has his wits about him. But then I look and I'm not seeing it. No one was seeing it. President Trump, not a single time since he's done a single press conference, has President Trump pulled up a card with reporters' names on it, with the Q&A on them. Not a single time. He didn't do it in his first term, and President Trump not doing it in his second term. But the Democrats, they all overlooked it. Why does Joe Biden have a card? Why does he have to have a card on who to call on? Because these questions were pre-designated for Joe Biden.
Yeah, I mean, they had to rehearse with him. They had to, this is a question. This is going to be your answer.
This is how you say it.
Yeah. And you know what, Will? It's interesting to me that Trump is doing these amazing things right now in the Middle East. I mean, what a great trip that he is taking right now. And it's interesting that they're willing to overlook what Trump's doing and they're willing to talk about Joe Biden. And this is like the headline news for them, right? How bad was Joe? Because it's better to talk about how bad was Joe was than it is to talk about the great things that Trump is doing right now. I mean, do you not feel that way? I mean, I'm listening to the news and I'm just hearing about Joe on the liberal outlet.
Well,
of course, I'm not watching it 24/7.
Well,
but I'm saying their clips are all about Joe right now.
Yeah, it is about Joe because, of course, when President Trump is doing something extremely positive, they're going to shy away from it until they can get something to say something negative about it. But because they don't have anything negative to say about President Trump, other than the airplane, you know, they're saying negative stuff about the airplane. But if when Joe Biden got, you know, with the $1 billion with Ukraine and the funds that he got from these other nations, they didn't say anything about that. And they were trying to hide that information with Joe Biden when he was receiving the Biden crime family, when they received all of these gifts, they were trying to hide it. Qatar gives President Trump, or they're saying they're giving President Trump a plane that is worth $400 million. $400 million. And now the Democrats are upset about someone receiving something. And President Trump says he's going to use it as Air Force One. I don't know if he's actually going to do that. He's putting it out there saying that he's going to, but I think personally, he may be just saying that he's going to take the plane and use it as Air Force One to like poke at Boeing for not getting their job done, for not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Maybe that's the case. I don't know.
I don't know. I think he's really going to do it. I mean,
if he does it, I mean, then, you know, they're going to have to go through every single compartment, every single nut, bolt, electronical device in that plane to make sure that it is secure and safe.
But you know what? That's faster than building a whole new plane.
That is true.
But here's the thing. Today, just a few hours ago, Trump sat next to Boeing, the CEO of Boeing, in Qatar because they signed a $200 billion agreement with Qatar to buy 160 Boeing airplanes. So is he really poking at Boeing? I mean, he's doing them a huge favor by making this deal with Qatar.
Well, it's kind of embarrassing to Boeing, to be honest with you.
Right. And I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it's embarrassing to Boeing because, to my understanding, Boeing has had a request from Obama for a new plane, and they've never built that plane. And President Trump is saying, why is it taking so long? When President Trump was in office the first time, he was complaining about Boeing not doing their jobs. And we're pouring all of this money into Boeing, and they're not producing. They're not producing, or President Trump wouldn't make these statements. Well, here's something else. Back to Joe Biden, where the decline on Joe Biden has been evident for many years. And just now, the Democrats are acting like, oh, yeah, there's something wrong here. And it's all due to Jake the Snake. All due to Jake the Snake. And you know what? Jake the Snake wrote his book. Why he was writing the book, I would go on a limb here and say, because I don't think maybe he could have. I guess he could have wrote the book in the last 3 months. But he knew something was wrong with Joe Biden when he was saying nothing was wrong with Joe Biden. He knew something was wrong. But of course, a lot of these Democrats, they want to double down and try to act like, well, this is just a revelation. We're just starting to realize it now. We've known.
If things go south at the debate, me, Barack, Nancy, and Hakeem have a plan B. Schumer would later deny it.
What was the plan B? What was plan B? Do you know what plan B was, Shannon? I don't think Kamala Harris was plan B.
I don't think, well, I mean, that's
she
been
ended up
exposed
being
too.
plan B, and the plan B failed too. But
Because she pushed her way in.
I don't think that she was necessarily their plan B. I think they had a different plan, and she, you know how you have an A/B conversation, see your way out. She didn't see her way out. She saw her way in, and I think their plan B was not Kamala Harris.
It's a political problem that we have here.
Did he mean go south at the debate in that Joe Biden totally had a malfunction the way we saw, or did he mean just go south at the debate like he doesn't perform well? The fact
It
that
could have been both.
The fact that he was only concerned about the optics and not about the fact that the president of the United States might be in cognitive decline, might be mentally impaired, to me speaks volumes about the lack of character of Chuck Schumer. But the idea that we did not know about this for the years leading up to the presidential campaign, we all saw it with our own eyes. Video after video, speech after speech, statement after statement, the Her report. The fact that we have people saying today, oh, I didn't know, we had no idea, is outrageous. That's number one. Number two, the cover-up is outrageous. And number three, people were arguing with a straight face that this man could serve 4 more years until, of course, it became untenable at the debate. Honestly, Jake and Alex have done a great service here. This book needs to be written. These stories need to be told because we've lived through the greatest scandal in modern American political history, the cover-up of the decline of the president, the argument that he could serve 4 more years. If he were in office today, if he had somehow won and were in office today, you'd have the same people on TV today saying, he's fine. So, behind closed doors, he's fine. And you know it. It wasn't just deception about a campaign. The man was the sitting president of the United States. There's more at stake here than just politics. There's in-the-moment decision-making. Was the country at risk? Who was making decisions on behalf of the country? Because obviously the president was impaired, and there were people who knew it. There were people, those same people were lying about it publicly. And now the real question is, who was making decisions behind the scenes? You can't just move past it. It happened, and you can't move past it.
Wow. You can't move past it. Can't move past it. Democrats are in decline. And you know what? I'm going to go on a limb here is, the Democrats, because there's such decline, and now they're having to admit what they were lying to everyone about. Now they're trying to act like, well, we didn't know. You ever meet someone that constantly lie, and then they get caught in a lie, and then they go, well, I didn't know. We didn't know. We didn't know. That's what the Democrats are doing right now. We didn't know.
See, okay, and did the media not know? I don't know. But you know what? Well, look at this. This just came out today. And this to me just proves further that somebody knew something. Because this is an article in the book. It says he totally effed us. Kamala Harris's aide fingers Biden for the election loss in the new book. So there's this aide. Her name is Plouffe. And she said that she blames Biden for Kamala losing because he didn't drop out earlier. So that tells me that there was talk earlier than before this debate about Biden dropping out. And, his age was in question. His cognitive ability was in question, almost a whole 2 years before he actually started running. So this just confirms that they did know something. They're questioning it. And they just continue to hide it until really George Clooney was the turning point. The debate was the turning point, but also George Clooney's article was the turning point.
Yeah, it really was. George Clooney. He actually opened up. I want to say he put the nail in the coffin, but I think he opened up the coffin. He was the one. He was the main reason why they all started looking the other way with Joe Biden, and they got upset with George Clooney. You remember that? They got upset with him because he said the quiet part out loud. Like, this is not the same Joe that I know. And he was basically sounding the alarm for that during that time. And they all ignored Joe. I mean, they all ignored the problem with Joe Biden. And they were upset with George Clooney because he came out and did that. And then the dominoes just started falling after that. I guess the question is what took George Clooney so long to realize it? I've never sat down with Joe Biden, and I could see something was wrong with him. George Clooney had to sit down with Joe in order to realize that something was wrong with him. Is it that the left, they're so indoctrinated by the liberal media that they're very good on manipulating the people that watch that nonsense to get them to believe all of the lies that they're putting out there. Because someone like George Clooney, he had no idea something was wrong with Joe until he sat down with him.
Yeah. It wasn't until the campaign started, they started wanting stars and such
Right.
to participate. And then all of a sudden, the more interactions with Joe, people are like, what's going on here? What is happening? And I believe there probably was a huge question. You can't tell me George Clooney wasn't talking to other people like, what is happening? And probably nobody was listening. And so he's like, well, I'm going to go ahead and do an op-ed because this man cannot be, listen, there's a real fear when the person running the country does not remember names, cannot walk, has to have fluorescent tape on where to go and where to stand. Just walking in a room, he needed direction. Who to call on, he needed direction. Now we hear about the auto pin. Really and truly, his presidency was scary because we were left wide open and vulnerable. We know if somebody really wanted to take advantage of somebody not running the country, that would have been a time during Biden's administration.
Yeah, you remember when Joe Biden was asked a question about the balloon that went from the West Coast to the East Coast? Remember that? Did Joe Biden ever respond to that? I don't recall them ever asking him questions about that. Why did you allow that to happen? It was a Chinese spy balloon that went from the West Coast to the East Coast. Is it because Joe Biden wasn't in control and they wanted it to happen? I still want to know. I would still like to get a statement from Joe Biden about that. And not only that, China actually infiltrated the telecommunication systems in the United States of America under Joe Biden. And Joe Biden I don't ever recall Joe Biden was ever asked a question about that. Joe Biden was a national security threat to the country. He's a national security threat. Well, here's another one I want to share with you from the liberal media news. And again, they lied. Now they're trying to act like they didn't know. Now they're trying to act like, well, this is a new revelation. And all of us already knew about it.
His capacity. I agree with Susan. I think what's going to be more revelatory is if his capacity and decision making in the job was compromised. Was there national security issues, for instance, at any point? And I'm confident in our colleague Jake Tapper, to get to the bottom of what occurred here. But I think that is more significant, especially in the context of all that is currently happening today with the Trump administration regarding the Constitution as a suggested manual, disappearing folks. There's a really high bar, I think, in recalling that history. But there also is, I think, some soul searching that's going to happen in the Democratic Party as a result of this. And a lot
of questions being asked about why didn't you say something?
Right.
You were meeting with them.
And
you were defending his appearance. I mean, I remember Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, they put out a statement rebutting that Wall Street Journal story at the time, suggesting that behind closed doors, he was not the same person. They said, oh, he's fine. Well, he wasn't fine.
And it's not only about Biden, right? There's going to be a continued conversation now about other elders in the Democratic Party really needing to step aside.
You hear this? And this is the same thing that David Hogue was talking about, that these old people that's in the Democrat Party, they need to step aside. She's saying the same thing. And now they're saying because Joe Biden was old. Remember, they had no issues with Joe Biden. Every single person that you see sitting there, Democrats, none of them would acknowledge that something was wrong with Joe. But now they're saying something, especially this dude here. Macho, how do you say his name? Especially this dude here. I don't even know how to say his name. But he was one of the main ones too. They all said that Joe Biden was sharp. Nothing was wrong with Joe. And now they're saying that, look, this is actually a good thing that's happening because the Democrat Party, they're imploding. There's a civil war going on inside the Democrat Party. They don't know how to control it any longer. They don't know how to fight it any longer. So they're having to admit it. And because of Jake the Snake being one of them, releasing this information, admitting it.
Where they put out a statement rebutting that Wall Street Journal story at the time, suggesting that behind closed doors, he was not the same person. They said, oh, he's fine. Well, he wasn't fine.
And it's not only about Biden, right? There's going to be a continued conversation now about other elders in the Democratic Party really needing to step aside.
I also think it'll be interesting for the book to dive into the moments in between, right? This George Clooney moment we kind of knew about because George Clooney wrote an op-ed about it. So it was a focal point at the time. And then, the conversation kind of went away. But to your point, Dave, a lot of people would say, he was fine. And then all of a sudden he wasn't fine. Well, what were the aides who were with?
It was fine, but all of a sudden he wasn't fine. No, it wasn't all of a sudden. It was years and years and years, videos after video after video of something wrong with Joe. You know what it makes me think about too? How the people in the press corps, when they would go stand or go sit down before Jen Psaki even and Karine Jean-Pierre, none of them had a clue what was going on. None of them. And now they're all saying, well, they lied to us. You're the idiot. You believe what they were telling you. Why?
With him on a daily basis, thinking and doing as that slow progression presumably happened.
Before you jump in, this is not what Joe and Jill Biden. They were on The View last Thursday, and they were still.
I never thought that I would see the Democrats actually turn on each other like this. I mean, this is not good because, even President Trump, when he's in office the first time, one of the things that he mentioned was that the Democrats, no matter what, they would stick together. You remember that, Shannon? They would stick together no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter how bad it is, they would stick together. And President Trump talked about it a number of times. Like, I don't care what y'all say, because President Trump, I think he was somewhat frustrated with the Republican parties because the Republicans, they don't stick together. I mean, they really don't. They turn on each other like no tomorrow. I mean, I've seen it time and time again. Well, and I guess it comes down to a lot of these Republicans are like Rhino Republicans, because I remember Dan Crenshaw turning on Marjorie Taylor Greene, and what she was saying, I don't remember the exact story, but I remember she was pointing out something. I think she was talking about the insider trading too, or something like that. I can't remember. But she was pointing out some of the corruption that was taking place with the Democrats, and Dan Crenshaw chimed in, but he wasn't siding with Marjorie Taylor Greene. He was against Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm like, wow, this is wild, because everything that she's saying for this particular story was spot on. But Dan Crenshaw is like out here fighting against her. And he told her, he said, you're a politician now. You're supposed to be different. You're supposed to give in to the corruption. You're not supposed to question the corruption any longer. You're supposed to be part of the game. You're now part of the club. She don't hear much from Dan Crenshaw. At least I haven't heard anything from Dan Crenshaw. He's a snake, one-eyed snake. He really is. Well, listen to this. Here's those shucky ducky Schumer. Chuck Schumer was asked a question about Joe Biden's cognitive abilities, and all the Democrats saying that he was sharp. And what do you say now, Chuck? It's all coming out. It's all coming out that you knew about it, that you all knew about it, and you were lying to the American people. You lied to your constituents. And you have people like David Hogg. He wants you out. The black woman I just showed you on the Communist News Network, she wants you out. They want Nancy Pelosi out. They want Jerry Nadler out. They want them all out. All these old people that have been there all of these years, basically tearing down the country, because you still can't tell me a single thing that the Democrats have done that the American people have benefited from as a whole. Now, they help certain pockets of people out, but America, the United States of America, they don't do anything to help Americans out. Well, listen to Chuck Schumer's response.
Hand was up.
You said in June of last year, in my meetings with President Biden, I found him being command and impressive and wielding influence to make progress on key priorities. But in that same month, Biden apparently did not even recognize George Clooney at a fundraiser. Were you being straight with the American public?
Look, we're just looking forward.
We're just looking forward. What does that mean? We're not going to go back to the past and talk about all of the lies that we told about Joe Biden. So we're just going to look forward and act like it never even happened.
I mean, yeah, that's what they're going to do. He's saying, yes, I did do that. Yes, I am guilty of hiding Joe Biden's cognitive decline, because he can't say I'm not, or no, I didn't, because now there's evidence, probably in this book as well, saying that Schumer did know, Nancy Pelosi knew, all the top dogs in the Democrat Party knew, but they're more scared of Trump than they were protecting America and making sure that America had a person that could do the job.
Yeah.
They thought, well, we'll all do it for Joe. We've been doing it for 4 years. We'll just continue.
Yeah, I just find it amazing. I mean, I really do. I find it amazing that they've been caught in one of the biggest scandals. You know, they when Obama was in office, you see liberals every now and then. I see them put a post out there, and they said that Obama's administration was 100% scandalous free. They said was no scandals at all under Obama. And they completely forget about the whole Russia dossier. That was a scandal under Obama. They forget about Joe Biden with Ukraine. That was a scandal under Obama. And then there's a whole bunch of number of other things. That's just to name two. A lot of times when you ask Democrats to name one thing that, you know, Trump's done that's really bad, they can't name it. Well, it's just done many things. Name one. I just labeled two things, the scandals under Obama. Fast and Furious, another one under Obama. These are scandals that took place that the Democrats don't want to acknowledge. They don't want to acknowledge.
And you know what? Well, I guarantee that this is going to be the answer that they give going forward. Hakeem Jeffries is probably going to give the same thing. Well, we're looking forward. That's saying that we've messed up. We lied. You're absolutely right. But we're going to move forward. And all of a sudden, we're going to become this better party that we haven't been for 4 years. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, this is kind of scandalous, actually. And I want somebody to take a microphone to the streets, and I want to hear what the Democrat base is saying when they're having all these things uncovered. One, there's going to be a lot of people that don't know about it, but a lot of them are going to go, well, you know, Joe, he still did a lot of good things. He's better than Trump. That's what they're going to say, even though he could barely walk up a flight of stairs on a plane.
Joe Biden could never go around the world the way President Trump has and talk to all these different people, get deals done, make America look great, get the respect that we deserve as the United States of America. Joe Biden could never have done it. He didn't do it. He couldn't do it.
You know what? Well, there's a lot of presidents that haven't. I mean, what did Obama do? He went on an apologetic tour across America.
Sure did.
But even today, Qatar, the emir of Qatar, he told Trump, he's like, oh, you're the first president of the United States that's ever come here. And he said, so thank you. Now, of course, there's a lot of things with Qatar. We know that they've supported Hamas and the Taliban in the past. But Trump's like, listen, in order for us to go forward, we need to be civil, and we need to have some kind of common ground. So Trump's like, you know what? The common ground is I want everybody to be rich. I want everybody to be productive. I want countries to grow and prosper. And the only way we can do that is to stop fighting. That's Trump's whole message. When I'm sitting here listening, he's like, stop fighting. Let's become productive. Let's make money for everybody. Let's let our children grow up in a safe environment. Let's get rid of the wokeism. Let's do all these things so we can have a great world again. He wants to leave not only America in a better place, he wants to leave the world in a better place when he leaves office.
And someone made Anthony Jones on Facebook made a comment, because I do have your comments here. I can see your comments here, and said, you forgot about Hillary Clinton, the scandals. Remember, because she was part of Obama's cabinet. Remember that? There was scandals with her inside it. But that's where the whole dossier came in, because Hillary Clinton's team, she's the one that, you know, pushed that whole dossier, because they were trying to. But even before the dossier, Benghazi. When did Benghazi happen? Who was in office when Benghazi happened? Obama. So there was a lot of scandals. Well,
I just want to say, you know, there's a lot to say for this tour that Trump is doing, because even in Saudi Arabia, I thought it was hilarious, but they have so much respect for Trump, and it just shows how much they watch him. But they played the YMCA song.
Sure did.
They played the
After his speech.
Yeah, after his speech when he was coming on speech.
And they gave him a standing ovation.
They gave him, it was almost like a rally, a Trump rally, to be honest.
It was amazing.
So it just shows that they respect him. Listen, they would never do this for Biden. For Biden. I'm still saying that.
Right. You got it right.
They didn't do it for Obama either. Right. And so for the Democrats to say, oh, well, they're not afraid of Trump. They are afraid of Trump. They wouldn't do this to somebody unless they are afraid. They know the power of Trump.
Well, they know that President Trump is not a weak leader. They know this. And he's demonstrated that he's not a weak leader. And they're like, okay, well, we can't push him over. We can't play around with him because he's a strong leader. And he represents the United States of America and making America look great again. Here's another one with Chuck Schumer getting asked a question about Joe Biden by the Communist News Network, and he tries to deviate from it, and then he just gets to, we're moving forward. What does that mean? We're not going to talk about all the lies that we told the American people. We just want to move forward. This is politics. Me personally, if you are in political office and you blatantly lie, I don't care what platform it is, what media, if you are a politician and you blatantly lie to the American people, there should be consequences for that. You don't get the privilege to just come out and blatantly lie to people like this. And it's not just, it should be more than just you losing your seat, people voting you out, because these Democrats, they're scandalous. There should be penalties for them lying. And I'm surprised they're even asked, and the reason why they're asking this question, because the Communist News Network, they're upset with Chuck Schumer, Jerry Nadler, Nancy Pelosi, even Elizabeth Warren. They're upset with Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. They're upset with the Democrat Party because they lost. And they don't want it to happen again. But the Democrats, they can't help themselves. What do? They love to lie.
I really do want to ask you about something that has been breaking out of CNN. Our Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson have written a book called Original Sin, and they call it a cover-up of Biden's health and his cognition and his fitness, quite frankly, to be president of the United States. You sat next to Biden in the Oval Office, February 27th, 2024, just a handful of months before the president took that debate stage. And it was later reported that you and other Democratic leaders were talking before the debate about having a plan. You and Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama. I understand you later denied that ever happened. But I am curious, I'm interested to know whether the man that you saw sitting there on that couch on that day, you were in there, you saw him up close and personal. Did you really not have any idea that he was not fit to serve a second term?
Casey, we're looking forward. We have the largest Medicaid cut in front of us. We have the whole federal
You're
government
facing all
at
of this
risk.
because you lost a presidential election. And
Look,
is that not Joe Biden's responsibility for deciding to run again?
We're looking forward.
That's it?
That's it.
All right. Senator Chuck Schumer, I know you got to go. I appreciate your time today.
Oh, wow. We're looking forward. So that's his response to that question every time it comes up. We're just looking forward. We're not looking back to how we lied to the American people. We're just looking forward. We're just looking forward because they got caught. They got caught in the lie. And yeah, we're just looking forward. You can't make it up. You can't make it up. And as I mentioned, how many of you, and like I said, I do look in I do see the comments here on I got a screen over here. How many of y'all think that Kamala Harris was plan B? Is there anybody that think Kamala Harris was plan B? Because I don't think so. Well, let me tell you, let's talk about this really quick. Then I want to share something else with you about Kamala Harris. And they think that Kamala Harris was peachy, but
Yeah, well, let's talk about Rumble Premium. When Rumble first started in 2019, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions on COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they fell to the pressure from the Biden and Harris administration. Rumble did not. They held the line. They are attacked daily for giving us a voice to talk to you. They are attacked in corporate media. They are attacked by governments like France. They are attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove speech. Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive, though, with brand advertisers. They don't get much of it, like Facebook and other platforms. Watching our show on Rumble is the most that we can ask for. But if you really believe in this fight and you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. Go to rumble.com/premium and use promo code STUDIO. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we are just happy if you watch us on Rumble and share.
Check it out. Here it is. They're actually having a conversation thinking that Kamala Harris was a champion. They thought Kamala Harris was, how are they saying it? Kamala Harris was great. Kamala Harris was not plan B. I don't think she was plan B, C, D, E. She might have been F because that's what happened. I would go as far as saying that Kamala Harris was plan F because she failed. The Democrats failed. Why do you think they're so upset right now? They're still trying. They're trying to blame somebody other than themselves. Well, Scott Jennings and Kevin O'Leary, they straight up say that Kamala Harris, she lost. Did you know they're trying to say that she didn't lose, Shannon? She didn't lose.
I mean, I've heard some nonsense.
When was Kamala Harris ever in the primary for anything? When was she in the primary for anything? She never was. She never was.
Lastly, there's nothing about Kamala Harris that's a loser. Let's just put it like that.
Oh, I think there is. She lost big time.
You got to.
She lost an election.
The biggest All right. We are not going to. Hold on.
I'm not being disrespectful. I'm talking fact. She got slaughtered because they disavowed the process. They anointed her and she got slaughtered.
That's what
happened. We don't have to debate fact. We do not have to debate fact.
Hold on a second. Kevin. Just one point of clarification. She was elected in the 2020 election along with Joe Biden. She was elected in 2020 on the same ticket as Joe Biden. So there's that. We got to leave it there for this conversation. But coming up next,
she lost. She lost bigly. She lost 100%. Kamala Harris did not win. Thank God she didn't win. Can you imagine right now what this country would look like if Kamala Harris was in the White House? Ooh, I cringe thinking about it. It would have been you know what? She's so word salad that we would never known about USAID. USAID will probably increase by $1 trillion by what they're sending out the country. All of these other corrupt organizations that were taking place inside the federal government, we've never known about that. All of that would have been as usual, as normal. They would have been pushing more of that. The Department of Education would have still been targeting children for their needs. They're sinful needs. They would have still been targeting them for that. We would have seen all of that take place still. All of that would still been taking place. Nothing would have changed. Things would have just gotten worse. Israel would probably be gone right now because they've probably been helping all these other rogue nations try to take Israel out. It's no secret. Absolutely no secret. That's what they were trying to do. No secret at all. Well, I want to play something for you. And this is kind of a little bit off topic. But here's something else where the Democrats are losing everything. Hakeem Jeffries. This came out yesterday where Hakeem Jeffries was doing a press conference. And he was taking questions about these politicians that showed up to the ICE detention facility. And while they were at the ICE detention facility, in which I'm pretty sure many of you are aware of, they were basically being highly aggressive. Some of them were pushing, they were slamming their bodies up against the ICE officers, ICE agents. And now Hakeem Jeffries has a message for the Department of Homeland Security, basically saying that if you arrest these politicians that actually broke the law, that you're going to regret it. Now, remember when they went after President Trump over fraudulent stuff? How many times did they say no one was above the law? President Trump didn't break any laws. Remember the documents case that they tried to get President Trump for in Mar-a-Lago, saying he had these highly classified documents. He's the president of the United States. A lot of them don't, and they leave out the key detail about the documents. And I didn't know this until Byron Donalds made the statement. He's the president. He can have the documents up to 5 years after he leaves office. 5 years. He can have them after he leaves office. Meaning that he has a life, he can go speaking engagements, he can do other stuff, and then he has up to 5 years to go through the documents and hand them over to the library. 5 years to the National Archives. 5 years. They conveniently leave that out, trying to say that he broke the law. When Joe Biden had the documents in his garage, none of them said anything about Joe Biden breaking the law. They crossed the red line when they took the mugshot of President Trump, the mugshot of Mona Lisa, the Mona Lisa of mugshots. When they took that picture of President Trump, they crossed the line. When they hemmed President Trump in the courts in New York, gave him 34 fraudulent felony charges, they crossed the line. Trying to put President Trump in jail, put him in prison to try to prevent him from becoming president, they crossed the line. Trying to take President Trump off the ballots off of various states so that people couldn't vote for him, so much for democracy, they crossed the line. These fraudulent cases that they brought up against President Trump, these charges, they crossed the line. The 4 indictments, they crossed the line. Everything that they did trying to do to President Trump, they crossed the line. Now you actually have Democrat politicians who actually went to an ICE facility, all on camera, breaking the law, trespassing, being violent towards ICE agents. They broke the law. But Hakeem Jeffries has a message for DHS and more likely the Department of Justice as well, if they go and arrest these politicians.
Your statement the other day after there was this incident in Newark, you said they better not touch our members.
Correct.
What happens if they were to go and arrest these members, or if they would try to sanction them here in the House of Representatives?
They'll find out.
What would you do?
They'll find out.
What recourse? But doesn't that broach a?
They'll find out.
Doesn't that go across?
That's a red line.
What's the red line though? I know we have this.
It's a red line. It's very clear. First of all, I think that the so-called Homeland Security spokesperson is a joke. It's a joke. They know better than to go down that road, and it's been made loudly.
And he's talking about Kristi Noem. He could at least say her name, right? He doesn't want to say President Trump's name. He doesn't want to say Kristi Noem's name. He doesn't want to say anyone in President Trump's cabinet. He doesn't want to say their name. He just want to say that she's a joke. Really? Here it is. He's attacking a woman, basically.
Abundantly clear to the Trump administration. We're not going to be intimidated by their tactics to try to force principled opposition from not standing up to their extremism. It hasn't happened during the entirety of this failed term. It didn't happen when Donald Trump temporarily was sitting high in the immediate aftermath of the election. Do you think it's going to happen now when he's the most unpopular president in American history after his first 100 days? Give me a break. No one's intimidated by this dude. No one. And so there are clear lines that they just dare not cross.
So what he is saying, that if they go and arrest these corrupt Democrat politicians that were being violent towards ICE agents, you're going to cross the red line. What was it when they arrested President Trump? What was it when they booked President Trump in Georgia? I think they fingerprinted him, right? They fingerprinted. They fingerprinted Trump in Georgia, and then they took the Mona Lisa of mugshots of President Trump in Georgia. Did they not cross that red line then? And they're expecting. Look, if they do not arrest these corrupt politicians, then there is truly a two-tier justice system. You can't say that President Trump broke the law when you're making up stuff trying to say that he broke a law. You can't even name the law that he broke, but you're just making it up, and then you still arrest him when we actually see them physically in a physical confrontation with ICE agents, all on camera. It's not a cheap fake either. It's not a cheap fake. They actually did that. But we're not supposed to acknowledge it. And Democrats, see, they can break the law and they're not supposed to go to jail for doing it. They need to arrest them. They need to be arrested. UniteAmericaFirst.com, UniteAmericaFirst.com. Please go to UniteAmericaFirst.com. Sign up for that free newsletter. Sign up for the free newsletter. Also, if you see the little circles at the top there, if you go to UniteAmericaFirst.com/donate, you can support me, sponsor me. You can do monthly right there. Whichever one you decide to do will be greatly appreciated. It will be a blessing. I really appreciate it. And at the same time, if you just want to do a one-time blessing, you see the typical ones, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, et cetera, et cetera. Or if you want to send me something to my physical address, you can do it right there. That's my physical address. And liberals see my physical address and they don't like me putting my physical address there. Did you know that, Shannon? They don't like me doing it.
Yeah, we have them write us every once in a while about where we live.
They put it on social media. Dude, you live in Pflugerville. Okay, whatever. Also, Mike Lindell, mypillow.com / if you go to mypillow.com /Will, you can see other stuff. But just remember this, no matter where you go to mypillow.com, put in promo code Will to get the best deal. That's all you got to do. Let me say it again. It's really catchy. It's really simple. On mypillow.com, to get the best deal, use promo code Will. It's really that simple. I know a lot of people, it makes it really easy to remember because, you know, when you go to MyPillow, Mike Lindell, and you want to get the product because, look, these are products made in America. You know, we need to bring Mike back on, Shannon, and talk to him about the tariffs. How are these tariffs working for him? Are they hurting him? Because he makes his products here in America by Americans. And he makes these products reasonable. And guess what? Because they're made in America by Americans, they're not cheap items. But you get them at a reasonable price. Because see, Mike Lindell, he understands what the economies are going through. Look at that. Sale for 80%. I mean, come on. You can't beat that. Can't beat that. Can't beat that. And also, let me remind y'all too, really quick before we get out of here, if you go to prepgearplus.com, prepgearplus.com. Now, I can tell you doomsday reasons why you should go to prepgearplus.com because Democrats, I still think they have something up their sleeve that they're going to try to implement. You just heard Hakeem Jeffries. What do you think that means with Hakeem Jeffries? I think he's actually calling for violence across the country. So y'all need to get prepared at prepgearplus.com. There's generators that you can hook the solar panels up to charge them because if the electricity goes out, what are you going to do? There's many medical reasons why they have these generators as well. Cell phones. You can get a satellite phone You get a satellite phone. I have one right here. I keep it close to me all the time. If you get a satellite phone, I want you to share your number with me, and I'm going to share my number with you, my direct number. So if it all happens, even if it doesn't happen, we need to communicate with each other. PrepGearPlus.com, PrepGearPlus.com. Go check it out. All right, everybody, that's it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tomorrow's Thursday. Be here. Maybe we'll open up the phone lines tomorrow. Just depends on what's going on. God bless everyone. See you tomorrow. Stay safe.